Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker, shills, desolate source, peasants, vassals. I'm a useful idiot. Today I want to talk about this purchase by the Department of Homeland Security of 2,717 light armored, mine-resistant vehicles. And this story is starting to make the rounds on the web. As it turns out, the story actually broke last September, and the information is now kind of filtering out now. And the details are pretty interesting. It turns out that this company, Navistar, built 9,000 of these vehicles for the U.S. military. And now 2,717 of those that are returning from the Afghan and Iraq theaters of operation are being retrofitted. And so that's pretty interesting. Why does the Department of Homeland Security need light armored, mine-resistant vehicles on the streets of the United States? Because there's no mistake about that. They are intended for the streets of the United States. In fact, that's another part of the story that's generally not being talked about right now, and that's the fact that these vehicles are already on the streets of America, and there's plenty of examples of that. There's a story attached below that shows pictures of these vehicles with the Department of Homeland Security logo being used all over the country already. And these vehicles are pretty formidable, certainly for a police force. They're supposed to be resistant to improvised explosive device, mine blast, ballistic arms fire. They have gun ports, and they're everything a domestic suppression unit could want. And that also brings up some other interesting things. I mean, besides the fact that if you put this together with the fact that now the Department of Homeland Security feels like it needs to be a private army of sorts, with 3,000 armored vehicles and 1.6 billion bullets stockpiled thus far. So when you put all these details together along with the legislation, definitely enough to make anyone nervous. But I want to caution people not to panic too much, because there's some pragmatic aspects of this that might diffuse a little bit of the mania. That's the fact that, first of all, you have the same program with the government selling surplus items or giving them to local law enforcement, police departments, and the Department of Homeland Security. So that's part of a surplus recycling program we've had going on for decades, and certainly the last 10 years for sure. And the other thing is they can generate revenue. So instead of having all these light vehicles come back, they can keep 7,000 of them still, or 6,000, and then the other 3,000 they can generate some money. And we know that the military likes money because they want to buy more shit like this. So, the other thing that's interesting about this is that let's face the fact that the state is paranoid. My friend Bertley and I have discussed this ad nauseum. Just the incredible paranoia that governments and the state has. And certainly the government we have now in the United States is paranoid. And the fact that they have all this legislation to suppress the domestic population, the fact that they're going to stockpile all this equipment, the fact that they build these camps, doesn't automatically mean that they are planning with foreknowledge that something is going to happen. The government and the state is paranoid enough that they would spend a lot of money preparing all this stuff just in case, because they know it's possible, and they'll do anything to protect their power and keep the status quo. So that said, still, the Department of Homeland Security overall purchasing this kind of equipment is cause for alarm, because the fact is that because of the Posse Comitatus Act, American military forces are not allowed to operate on U.S. soil, certainly not in crowd control situations. And now we have the Department of Homeland Security, because of the Patriot Act, can basically create another army that can be used on domestic soil, and won't violate the Constitution because of the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act allows this army to operate on U.S. soil, the Department of Homeland Security. And that could be the real reason it was created in the first place. Because of it. But, you know, it seems like a moot point in some ways. I mean, if you're going to have a civil unrest in the United States, and the Constitution says you can't use military, and they did anyway, I mean, really, what would it matter at that point if we have civil unrest and societal breakdown across the country. The Constitution, of course, will be a moot point, certainly for the state. And this whole situation, though, like I say, I think people should at least keep their eyes and ears open and look at these developments and look at them carefully and try and piece all this together, because it does paint a sinister picture. So now we have the Department of Homeland Security. It's got 3,000 light armored vehicles. Many are on the street now. They purchased 1.6 billion hollowpoint bullets, which seems a little extravagant. And then, like I say, we have drones and all kinds of police and surveillance state apparatus, and of course all the legislation that we've seen, from the Patriot Act to the National Defense Authorization Act, and manuals that direct U.S. Law enforcement to actually fire on U.S. citizens, all kinds of sinister things. So they're definitely thinking about the same scenario we are, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's coming, but just like they are preparing for this possible scenario, I wouldn't think it's short-sighted for most Americans to prepare for that sort of scenario, because we can't rule it out. So there you have it. Department of Homeland Security getting better armed every day. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.